Some content or topics discussed could trigger a past anxiety or be sensitive or disturbing to listen to or view. Please view and listen with caution.
Welcome back to Walking Tall. It's been quite some time since the three of us have been together, but I am just ecstatic to be hanging out once again with Dr. Vanetta LaRosa and my good friend Todd Blylevin. We have some new settings, it seems, over the last few weeks for all of us, frankly, but that's okay. Life has thrown its curveballs in many ways, and we just adapt. But Todd, how are you doing, my good friend? You're up and out and about, but it's just so exciting to be back together again. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Good to see both of you as well, and get Walking Tall going again. And yeah, I'm on the road, so this is how we do this. I mean, love technology that you can kind of do a Zoom anywhere and do an amazing podcast show. So yeah, everything's going well. Thank you.
Yeah, but listen, if not for your technology expertise, we would not be doing this. Like the fact that we could be doing a podcast of, we hold in such regard, the three of us particularly, it means so much to us. But like to be able to do it from a vehicle and Dr. LaRosa from her home, and I'm in like the office space of my condo building, like it's kind of wild and fun. But that's the power of technology. And Dr. LaRosa, you are the smartest of the three of us. In many things, but technology is not one of them.
It is not. It is not.
but you managed to be here today, and I just, I just love this portion of what we do, and so I'm so happy you're here with us again today. So thanks. How are you doing?
I'm so excited to have us together again and continue our discussions, our very important discussions. I'm excited to hear from our guests today, and as we have all discussed so many times before, these shows fill us up emotionally because we know that we are doing good for a lot of people who are listening. So I'm always excited to get together with the both of you. And I'm doing, I'm missing my Vito. He went off to college, but he's happy, so I'm happy.
You know what? Listen, I'm glad you mentioned that, and I was joking earlier about the backgrounds and the settings. Like, for once in our show's history, I don't have like some music concert poster behind us, right? Like, and I think about the three of us, and we all in some ways have gone through life changes over the last few months. Dr. LaRosa, you mentioned missing Vito. He's still alive, thankfully, but he's now at college. And Todd, I know you're missing Gracie just as much. Like, and those life changes are so tough at times. And I, having moved into a new apartment and, moving on with my life in many different ways, like times change, life progresses, evolves. But like, to me, it's so important to have relationships like I have with the two of you to remain whole and to keep resilient. And so like things are changing for all of us all the time, but the knowing for me personally that I have the two of you to lean on is just so comforting. So no matter what life throws at us, we got each other, I guess, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. You need your core.
That's it. Our rocks, our board of directors or whatever we call them. And, we've been so fortunate to meet such great guests. And as Dr. LaRosa mentioned, today's is no different. And it's just so exciting to have different stories being shared, different experiences being spoken about, because as we promote approachability and vulnerability, like sharing our stories is what we're all about. And Chrystal Behe is coming on here shortly. And if you don't know who she is, she's a domestic abuse awareness advocate, speaker, author, and she helps others like herself recover their identity by transcending the complexities of trauma, so those can also reclaim their lives. And Dr. LaRosa, as we were getting ready to talk about today's show, we've just had this mantra, the three of us: everything happens for a reason, everything falls in line. And I know you were wanting briefly to talk about your mother, and so I'm just so excited for you to get to meet Chrystal. So Todd, if you don't mind, please let's get her on and let's get this show underway.
All right, let's see if this technology stuff works.
Yeah, I was just talking about how great you are now. Don't screw it up.
That's my role, Todd. Screwing up technology.
This is the first time. Wait a minute. We didn't even highlight. Vanetta, you came in perfect.
I know. I
Ms.
know.
Chrystal, how are you? Welcome to the show. If you didn't hear, you'll hear later. I did a not so great job of introducing the beautiful human that you are, but the floor is yours, ma'am. Please, please, please. Thank you for walking tall with us today. Tell the world who you are, what you're doing, and how you got here.
Hey guys, my name is Chrystal Behe, also known as Crystal Phoenix when I'm on my speaking platform on LinkedIn and YouTube, where I have my show Life Talks with Crystal Phoenix. I am a domestic abuse awareness speaker, author, coach, who focuses mainly on personality recovery after getting out of domestic abuse. Because let's face it, guys, if you're in that hell, I hate to say it, once you get out, you don't know who you are, what you're doing, which way is up. You don't trust yourself. You don't trust anything. I know I didn't. And I know a lot of people aren't lucky enough to have a mat to support them when they get out. I got lucky enough to have my best friend give me a place to stay and support me, and through the very emotional roller coaster that was of recovering myself and my life after I had been beaten down in so many ways for 9 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And Crystal,
So sorry to hear that.
yeah,
Mhm.
I love how you said not everybody has a mat, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But if you don't mind, 9 years is a long time to endure abuse of many forms. And as best as possible and as comfortable as you are sharing, would you go into a little bit more of what that looked like and how that process was put into place by your abuser so we can maybe help others become aware if their situation is similar?
Absolutely. I've come a long way, so I can actually go kind of in depth on it. Um, it didn't, just like most abusive relationships, it doesn't start out that way. It started out with him, telling me all the wonderful things I wanted to hear, how he would never control me, tell me who I couldn't be friends with, things like that. It started out great. It was a new adventure, of a relationship. We'd known each other for a long time, actually. We were in the same first grade class, for goodness sake. Yeah.
Wow.
So it started out slow with him complaining whenever I would talk to my family and friends. Like, he didn't want me hanging out with any of and it didn't matter if they were male or female friends that didn't support him in our relationship, that anybody that wanted me to have my own mind, my own thought process, he didn't want me to hang out with. It started with the isolating me. And then he convinced me to move to Iowa from South Florida, where I knew nobody. Like, I had nothing. And of course, I was in love. So, okay, let's go. New adventure. Bad idea.
That puppy love, man, it's dangerous.
Well, I also have a gypsy spirit, so moving around never really fazed me. Before I was with him, I had lived in West Virginia, I had lived in New York, I had moved around, on my own. I like seeing new places in the country, things like that, trying out new things. So that part of it wasn't that big of a deal to me. But he also was very much leaning on me to be the one to work. He'd make promises, oh, I'll go find a job. And then we got pregnant with our eldest daughter. And he was not very supportive during the pregnancy. In fact, it was worse with our second pregnancy. He wanted me to work, take care of our daughter, who was 1 at the time when I got pregnant with our second daughter. Basically napping, forget it. Taking care of myself, my food cravings, no, none of that mattered. Thankfully, we had roommates who actually were very supportive of my pregnancy and would try to step in and help. But after the girls were born and we had our own house, thankfully to my mother, things got really bad. That's when it progressed to sexual abuse, physical abuse, and the emotional abuse. If I didn't do what he wanted, well, all hell would break loose. He would break my things, break the girls' things. He would just take what he wanted anyway.
Mhm.
And it just systematically broke my spirit down further and further and further. And I was already so isolated, and the support system I did have in Iowa, he kept trying to take away from me. But then somebody had to have a job to be able to pay for the diapers, pay for formula and things like that, because food stamps and stuff only got us so far, plus utilities. So I would make friends. But then he would constantly, it was, if I was out of the house, it was constantly lighting my phone up. I could not have a moment peace to even think, let alone anything else. My spirit was just so broken that by the Christmas of 2019, I thought of ending my life. In fact, I tried. And hearing my girls playing was what stopped me. Not that I wanted to see them grow up. I couldn't leave them with that monster. And then by May of 2020, I finally stood up with the help of Matt and said enough was enough. Because my little girl looked at me and said, "Mommy, it's okay if Daddy hurts you as long as he comes home." Because I had once again put him back in jail for being abusive. I kept trying to stand up, but it was hard because they'd put him in jail and then they let him go. And he'd just come right back home, and it didn't matter. It felt like nobody believed me, that nothing could help. But when my daughter said that to me, that was the final door slammed on that relationship. I was done. And I actually had somebody who, we weren't dating at the time, he was just my best friend, who said, "You can come stay with me," and gave me a solid out. But at
Amazing.
that point, I was so broken. You couldn't close a door without me having an anxiety attack. That's how bad it got. And
Yeah.
it creeps up on you. That most abusers don't just start in with the abuse, with the breaking you down, but they do it systematically, slowly over time, breaking your spirit first, that by the time it does become physical, you think that there's no way out, that you deserve it, even. And that's where I was at.
That's just such a scary thought, to think you deserve such torture. And frankly, nobody deserves it, let alone somebody with such a beautiful smile and a spirit as you, Chrystal, right? Like, that's not what we're on this world to endure. We're supposed to share love and happiness and hugs. And Dr. LaRosa, we had talked as of late with Walking Tall. Everything has happened for a reason. And I know you've just been so emotional, having, learned about Chrystal and what she does now to help better the world and to frankly walk tall, right? But what are you hearing right now, and what are some of the emotions, and what are some of your professional thoughts as well, as you heard Crystal's story?
Well, Chrystal did a wonderful job of really just taking us through the journey of a developing abuser. And so just that few minutes alone that she has shared with us, no doubt will help our listeners when they're confronted with these same sorts of behaviors. Because as the plot thickens, so does the isolation from any support systems or networks that a person has. And once the person is removed from others that will step up for them and care for them and advocate for them and enrich their lives, then the abuser gains more and more power and control, as well as the person being abused develops a couple of things. They develop an identification and a hypersensitivity to the abuser. So it's a pattern where it sounds counterintuitive, but if you could just think about what's going on in the mind of the person who's being abused. Their whole picture of happiness has changed, right? And so as they're drawn further and further into this abusive cycle, they're trying more and more to understand and ultimately please the abuser. Number one, to avoid the abuse, to keep stability, and really just to survive, right? So a hypersensitivity to the abuser's needs and a hyper awareness of that person's, if you will, needs, I can't think of a better word, develops. And so the cycle just becomes thicker and thicker and thicker. And then the person is isolated more and more and more. And that's the only reality that they have at a certain point. And when we look at the statistics, it's anywhere from 67% return rate to an average of about 80% return rate. And then the people that return more than once, 97%. And, when I was at City University, I did some work with the late Dr. Charles Juneau, a wonderful mentor and friend of mine who has passed away. And we investigated the role of self-efficacy when it as it pertains to victims of domestic violence, or, if you will, intimate partner violence, as it might be called now. And self-efficacy is the belief in yourself to fulfill a specific role as a mother, as an earner, as a contributor to society, as a potential wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, a partner, whatever else have you, right? And so the effects of being in an abusive relationship at this level break down the self-efficacy in literally all of those roles. And so the person does not believe in themselves as an earner. They don't believe that they can be self-sufficient. They don't feel that they can be a positive attribute to a social network. They don't feel that they could be a good mother. They don't feel that they could be a good wife or spouse or partner or whatever else have you. And so when your efficacy is broken down, then you set your goals much, much lower because your fear of failing becomes much higher. And so that's how it kind of all develops, where the person's mindset is, this is my life, let's live it day to day and let's just survive. And so that's how it happens, and that's how it takes over. And that's how any reasonable, intelligent, wonderful person can become victimized at any point in time. And so victims shaming themselves and feeling as if they should be ashamed at their situation is something that I want to speak very loudly here today and say, please don't feel that way. My own mother was victimized. I'll get into a little bit of that story later, before she met my father. But the loving, beautiful, amazing human being that she was, because she passed away 13 years ago, was an attribute to this world, and the abuser didn't take that away from her. She contributed to this world and she made it a better place. So I'll share
Yes.
that later.
And if you're listening and not watching, Chrystal's making the heart hands. And Todd, the first thing that struck me when Dr. LaRosa got to talking was, she's had some amazing mentors, Dr. Juno, Dr. Goldberg, and I've just had you, man. What did I do in this? No, but seriously, yeah, I got you too. I mean that in all jest, hearing the two of them just talk about the abusive cycle that, we're aware of as males, right? Particularly, and certainly never partake in ourselves. But what have been some of your takeaways, hearing both Chrystal and Dr. LaRosa talk about, this all too important conversation as it relates to domestic abuse?
I'm so sorry, Chrystal, first of all, that you had to go through that. And anybody that suffers through some weak, selfish individual that decides that they can't push their own weight around on someone their size and their frustrations, and feels that it's okay to demoralize somebody weaker than they are in terms of physical form, or just take advantage of that moment of feeling empowerment due to the lack of strength that they internally have. I think it upsets me. It saddens me that people like yourself or anybody that suffers through any type of, whether it's emotional demeaning, the physical violence, and what you just brought us through just grabbed my heart, and it pours out to you and everybody that has suffered that. So in essence, yes, Chris. I mean, as a man, as somebody, I'm 6'5". I'm a big guy. I don't. I always kind of feel like, hey, pick on someone your own size. Why don't you come try doing that to me, or somebody else? And so I'm so glad to turn it around. You had a couple walking tall moments, and the fact that like your kids, and I think that's a big lesson too, when your outside element probably notices things that are happening to you, the change in your life, the change in your demeanor, maybe that, God forbid, the physical bruises or whatever you may have, but you were crying out for help and you didn't have that support because you were so far away from your home. And then your daughter like literally says these words to you, and that gave you the courage enough to stand up and say, you know what, now I'm walking. And so I'm just really proud of you for acknowledging that and not staying in that dark hole. And you stood up, and you just didn't stand up for yourself, but you taught your daughters a lesson of how to stand up for themselves too. And that's gonna carry on, not only with them, but maybe with their kids and their kids. And it's a story that's going to be told within your family history that you have changed that cycle. So I think it's amazing what you did.
Yeah, I concur on so many levels, and so beautifully said as always, Todd and Dr. LaRosa. And, as I sit back and I've listened to your story, Chrystal, right, and have gotten to know you, as Todd mentioned, there's some great walking tall moments. You mentioned not everybody has a Matt. I want to highlight him shortly as well. But also what really stuck out to me is just not only the physical components to your story that you spoken about, the physical sexual abuse, the demeaning comments and such, right? But the mental health issues that this type of environment created for you, right? We've had many great guests talk about attempting and such, right? And fortunately not being successful as you were also, but the depression, the things that you went into. So for a few moments, will you just talk about the mental health component aside, highlight that? What went into those thought processes when you attempted to take your life? All of these things that really got you to the place to say, hey, you know what? Enough's enough. I'm going to walk tall for myself.
Well, I was depressed constantly. All I could think was, I want this pain to end. I want to be with my dad, because my dad had passed away now 19 years ago. I wanted to be with my dad. I wanted the pain to stop. I was constantly in emotional pain. I was trying to protect my girls, feeling like I was failing at that. Because I will own, the fight or flight instinct was very real in me. My anxiety was through the roof. Like I said, you couldn't close a door hard without me having a panic attack. Like, I felt like there was no escape. There was nothing I could do. And it just kept progressively getting worse, no matter what I did. He knew it. He would purposely hit on those things. Since he was primarily the stay-at-home parent, he basically taught my girls that they didn't have to listen to me. So they would, and my girls were smart, I'll own it. They would play on the fact that they would just push and push and push and push till I'd finally give in and give them that snack or that candy that they wanted, because of the way my anxiety was and everything. I wanted it to stop. I wanted the pain to end. I was so depressed, so inward, like everything it was all my fault no matter what. I made the choice to be with this man. So at the end of the day, I deserved it, but my girls didn't. And that was literally the only thing that was keeping me going, that was keeping me alive. And that moment in time was the fact that I could not leave them alone with this monster. I didn't know if he could be that monster that he was to me, to them, because I would pull, if I saw him getting angry with them, I would pull his attention to me. Because I didn't want to know if he could hurt them the way he did me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I felt, in turn, I also felt like I deserved some of it. And that made my depression go even further.
Yeah.
To where I literally, the only time I would laugh and smile was when we would all go and hang out at Matt's. He literally saved my life from my ex a few times. And
well, yeah, please, if you don't mind, like you just gave a great depiction of what that like dark cloud not only is being held over you in your living environment, right? But now the mental trauma that abuse produces as well. Like, Chrystal, nobody deserves that, certainly not you. And Dr. LaRosa, I wanted to give you the opportunity. I know you wanted to highlight briefly the story your mom had and share it with Chrystal as well. So now's a great time to do that before we start talking about the fun side of everything Chrystal's up to and how we're walking tall.
Yes. Well, Chrystal once again, explained mentally all of the contributing factors. I'm trying not to get emotional. To someone in that.
It wouldn't be an episode of Walking Tall if you didn't get emotional. Who are we kidding, Dr. LaRosa?
I know. But when you're a parent on top of it and you're living this life, you're afraid every minute of your life that abuser is going to see your vulnerability and use it against you. And as parents, we know our greatest vulnerabilities are our children, right? And so living every single minute of your life, constructing situations to keep them safe, knowing that you yourself are not safe, is mentally taxing beyond anything anybody could possibly understand. I've never been abused myself, but my mother was, and I'll share that story briefly with you. And Chrystal, this is divine intervention, if you will. I truly believe. Just a few days before our episode today, well, it was my mother's birthday on August 26th, and she's been gone for 13 years. And I was thinking about her a lot, of course, and crazy thing happened. I was just driving, and I came across a car that had a young man and a young girl in the car. And I got a feeling, and this happens to me a lot. I was just analyzing their behavior a little bit and got a feeling something wasn't right between them. Now it's just the car stopped at a light, and a feeling came over me, and the car continued to drive, and her little hand was out the window, just kind of catching the wind a little bit. And I noticed her frail, small hand, and immediately I thought of my mom. My mom was tiny. She was only 5 feet tall, and she was abused very severely in her young life. And I thought of a domestic violence situation in regard to that passing car. I don't know why. But I said to myself, I would really love to do one of our shows focusing on this topic so that we can be a voice, we can help people, we can share stories. And then literally a couple of days later, Chris introduced you. So I have to say these things are not by accident. I think that we're here for a reason. We're here to share a message for a reason. My mom was, she didn't have a great or stable family life. She was put into foster care after her grandmother passed away, who was caring for her at about age 11 or 12, where she was abused. And so she ran away from this facility at the time. And she was 16. The only way not to go back was to get married. And so she met someone, and within a very short period of time got married. He turned out to be a domestic terrorist. She was sexually abused, extremely physically abused, and she had absolutely no family or anybody to help her. Now, at a certain point in time, she has 4 kids, and she's in her early 20s. She didn't have any place to go, and she had all these kids to take care of. She was abused while she was pregnant. She was abused while trying to take care of kids. She had nothing, no one, no education, because she dropped out of school, didn't even finish high school. And this is how she lived. And, being 5 feet tall and 70 pounds, it's a surprise that she wasn't dead. So she too, thought about ending her life. And for some reason, she felt some clarity at some point, didn't. She escaped with her kids, lived homeless for a period of time, and then met my dad, who was in the Air Force, stationed where she was at the time. And at 22 years old, which is what he was, he married her and, gave her a better life. And here I am, a product of those two. So long story short, at a certain point in my life, I knew about my mother's struggles, and I knew everything that she had gone through. And so instead of allowing this to stop the good person that she is in its tracks and shut down and retreat, she just became more and more giving and loving. And she did suffer some emotional trauma and, depression and anxiety and PTSD and all the things that people go through. She did, but I have to say she was a great mom. As parents, we all make mistakes. We all wish we could go back in time and pluck those, certain mistakes that we made out of history and do it over. None of us are perfect, but at the end of the day, we know we're loved. We know we love our children, and they know that we've done the best that we can, and so thinking about everything that she had gone through made me angry, a lot of times as a teenager, as just a person wanting to defend my mom, who is just the sweetest person on this planet and really has an energy very much like you, very open, big-hearted, loving. Like, I just want to reach out and give you a big hug. That's how she made everyone feel, because that's how she really was. And, this person could have been responsible for her not being here to give to the world everything that she gave. And somehow, some way, she rose above it. She started a new life and did the best that she could with the remaining life that she had. So
well, she birthed you and turned out somebody pretty special, all things considered, Dr. LaRosa. Like, and I listen to you say these things, right? And Todd particularly, I start to hear like just this natural story of walking tall, right? Like, as Dr. LaRosa told the story of her mother, right? Like, at some point getting out, but then standing up and saying, hey, I'm going to support myself. I'm going to support my children, and I deserve better for myself. So, Chrystal, before we get back to you, Todd, real quick, like, what are some of your thoughts before we hear of some of the amazing things Chrystal's doing now and how resilient she's become because of her experience?
Yeah, I think, Vanetta, thank you so much for sharing that story.
Yes.
That was truly impactful as well. Just another lesson for someone to learn from, on so many different levels. And then Chrystal too, just so many, I've got goosebumps just thinking about the strength and the courage and the resilience and that fight that like overcomes you and pushes you to kind of break that barrier of where you're at and push you into a different land. And sometimes, and I think we're going to get into this, Chris, with Chrystal, I think that's where you're going. Sometimes you need someone to be able to be on the other side of that tug of war with you and pull you. And that's something that we as a society should be able to be looking more at those victims and offering that helping moment. And I think it's okay. I think sometimes when we look at somebody from the outside and we know their struggle, that we get, maybe it's not our place to step in. It's not what we're supposed to do, but at times it is. At times it's okay to be able to say, you know what, hold on, I'm really seeing that person struggle. I'm seeing a bruise. I'm seeing the weight loss. That person's not okay. And if I don't step in, I don't say something, then maybe that person's not going to be with us anymore. And, I have not been in that situation, thank God, where I've seen somebody that's gone through what you've gone through, Chrystal, or Vanetta, that your grandmother's gone through, or your mother, I'm sorry. But yeah, it's all strength, it's all resilience, it's walking tall to its highest moment. And you both have walked tall, Chris, as you have walked tall. There's all these moments where we've walked tall in our lives, and it's so amazing, Chrystal. You're here. You're now sharing your story with others. You're vulnerable. It's how we learn. And hopefully everybody that's listening to this can grab onto that courageous kind of grasp of life that you held and walk tall for yourself. So it's awesome.
Amazing. Well, now, ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce you to Chrystal Phoenix? No, I'm just kidding. Dr. LaRosa, before I cut you off, let me go ahead. What were you going to say real quick before we move on?
I was just going to say, people talk about how courageous and miraculous it is to rise above a situation like this, but it's nothing short of a miracle. When someone has you, completely terrorized and wrapped up in your own thoughts, getting out of something like that is so much. I know that we're all trying to find the right words, but courageous is just the very tip of the iceberg. It takes, mental strength and, courage and belief in oneself, and, just, it takes so much grit. You guys are athletes, professional, Todd down there and Chris as a college coach and player, the word grit, right? So if you think about grit at the ultimate highest level, you're thinking about Chrystal and people like my mom and, others who've gotten out of this. And I did some work in my life with, victims of domestic abuse, or, in this welfare to work program in the city long time ago. And each and every woman that I met and had the opportunity to counsel had stories not too far off from this, and knowing the intimate aspects of some of these individuals' skill sets and talents and levels of intelligence and heart. They were all such beautiful people who were so beaten down. And we think about, this is in our country. There are parts of the world where this is normal. Where this is how
it's
women
not
are
normal. Let me just be the first to say
in
it's
their
not,
culture.
it's
Yeah.
not, none of this is normal. This is not the human condition by any means, regardless of your race, religion, beliefs. Like, people are not made to be abused, right? We're all humans. We all deserve the care and love that we wish to have for ourselves, frankly, and I'll die on that hill. But moving forward, Chrystal, I made light of, and I'm not making fun. Like, it's so cool to think how you've transcended yourself and you've developed, I don't want to say a persona, because you're as authentic as it gets, right? But you've developed this platform to go out, to write stories, to speak, to do all of the things that you wish to now prevent. So talk a little bit about that. Like, how did you become Chrystal Phoenix?
Well, the Phoenix has always been, in my mind, a symbol of rising above, a symbol of healing, a symbol of, yes, it is to a point a symbol of retribution as well, if you look at the darker side, but it is a symbol of hope and healing, rising from the ashes. And I just felt like that was kind of my spirit animal, in a sense. And it was, if you look at my website, though, it's actually a kitty phoenix, because I love cats, and I've had the nickname Cat for a very, very long time because I'm a Leo and I stretch like one. So as a teen, I got the nickname Cat. So I have made a hybrid phoenix of the kitty phoenix, and it's because that's who I am. I rose from the ashes of this complete, absolute hell, and I had support through Matt and through different people that I've met on both the LinkedIn platform and in support groups and things like that. And I want to give that back to others. I want that hope that I was given by, just being heard is why I am doing what I do. Why I, especially with my writing and my book projects and things like that, that's the biggest thing. Why, the first time that I spoke for,
Well, Chrystal, real quick, if I can, let's so talk about what are your book projects and what are your speaking platforms. Let's talk a little bit about that. Like, let's talk more in depth quickly.
Absolutely. My speaking platform is I utilize LinkedIn for audio events, and I have my YouTube channel, Chrystal Phoenix Rising. And it is all about talking about the hard stuff, sharing stories of domestic abuse or trafficking, just talking about mental health in general. I like using the LinkedIn platform in the audio rooms because you don't have to be on video. It's a safe platform to just share. And I make sure that people know when they come to my audio rooms, there is no judgment. It is a safe place to just, unload how you're feeling in that moment. I have written in 4 anthologies, about to be 5, sharing different aspects of my story of healing. Rattled Awake Volume 3 was the very first one. And I thought it was a prequel to Rise of Chrystal Phoenix, which is my solo book, sharing my story. But it actually became the call to action for the anthology series that I am producing right now. I'm doing a 3-book anthology series where different aspects of domestic abuse. The first book is about people who grew up in that environment and made the conscious decision as adults to break the cycle. The second book is the traditional survivor series. And the third book is the angel stories told by family or friends in hopes that their deaths mean something. So that's the project.
I got goosebumps. Like, just to not only know, Chrystal, that you, in essence, as we've gotten to know you today, are the perfect person to not only tell your story, but to help others tell theirs in such a beautiful art form of written word. But to be so well thought out, to have a plan to say, here's the 3 anthologies that really tell the story of different types of abuse, different forms. And I don't know, Dr. LaRosa, I just felt like you're just having like, yes.
Yeah. I'd be happy to share my mom's story, Chrystal, on anything that you publish, free of anything. Just please, I'd be happy to. I think that
your mom's story would actually be perfect for book 1.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Oh, great. Now, like Dr. LaRosa needs another project on her plate.
Oh, this is meaningful. I've always wanted, I tried, when I did the counseling program and all these different things to make, it's not really where my career kind of progressed, but but I've always wanted to do more. I've always had a passion about it, because of everything that she has gone through. So anything I can do, Chrystal, don't hesitate.
Love it. Well, before we sign off, Todd, I know there's just so much that we unpacked and heard and are just talking about, and the mental health aspect of all of this is just so heavy, right? It's just so heavy, but it's hard to relate to because so much of it is tangible, right? And when we talk about mental health, it's the things we don't see. But in hearing your story, Chrystal, it's the things that we could actually visualize that make this so impactful, and the outcomes of mental health, the attempts of suicide, the depression you've depicted. Like, Todd, I know I'm overwhelmed. You got to be as well.
No, well said. I mean, going through what you went through, obviously we've described how, we just don't agree with it to the whole heart of everything. But the aftermath, what you're doing now to learn how to live with your trauma that you've unfortunately been branded with, and it's never going to go away, right? But you're learning how to live with that every single day, and you're learning how to live with it in a way that provides peace and harmony and love to you and to all those around you. And to Matt, that was so courageous to open his doors to you. I mean, he's the angel, right? He opened it up. He gave you an opportunity to have safety and allow you to be the person that you are, and that crystal phoenix to just stand up and roar and be the beast that it's supposed to be and share the light to everybody's darkness. So it's an honor really to hear your story. It's an honor to meet you physically, or I should say in Zoom world. But thank you so much for being on the Walking Tall movement. This is really an incredible episode that we need to do more of, and we'd love to have you back on as well, just to share stories. And Vanetta, I mean, just you're courageous. Being of opening yourself up and telling your story of your mom and just her, and that whole visual of the hand waving, and you never know what someone's going through, right? So thank you for being on this show. It's so awesome to just hear you talk about it. Yeah, so strong.
Well, Dr. LaRosa, I feel like I introduced you to another best friend. I feel like every guest of ours is like, well, Dr. LaRosa's got a new one. But as we sign off,
what are more friends?
I know who can't, right? But what are some of your parting thoughts?
Oh boy, I have to go back to how this all started a few days ago and just really highlight how very much I do believe that this is some type of connection that's beyond the scope of anything that we planned. It just, the coincidence is too great for it to be just that. I think that it's meant to be, that we're here together today, that we have met Chrystal, that we've heard Crystal's story. And, I've never really shared publicly my mom's story. All those feelings of fear, embarrassment, what will people think, all these different things have plagued me, for some of my years. And I've kept this private and to myself. And it's a burden as a loved one to I had a lot of anger, I'd visualize, beating this guy with a baseball bat, and, now that I know, you guys, let's just put all these guys in a room with you and Todd and see how they come out afterwards. Right.
I know of a few people that would join Chris and Todd, in that, let's throw them all in a room, but perpetuating the abuse isn't exactly the answer either. But I do agree with the sentiment. I agree with the sentiment.
100%.
As a kid growing up, it brought me anger, and I didn't know how to deal with it. Knowing what my mom had gone through, I was so angry, at this person that I had never met, and this story that I didn't live, but I knew that she lived. And I had to navigate those feelings and work through a lot of that anger. And, sort of because I am such an empathetic person living, vicariously and all these different things. It took me a while to put into perspective, but she has written so many beautiful poems, and she has really just used her creative outlet, in her years to help heal, her pain and her trauma. And, I'd love to share that all with you, Chrystal. And honestly, I love what you're doing. And, turning your trauma into everything good that you're doing now for the world around you. Is people like you just make our lives so complete, and meeting people like you is the reason that we do this. So thank you.
Yeah, I agree. And I was laughing at exactly that, right? Like violence to violence is not the answer, but I'll admit, the suspect in my situation, I've had visions of a little dance with him now and again too, right? And obviously that would not bode well for anybody, but that's the human condition, right? We get upset, we have anger, we lash out, and it's understandable, but it's folks like us and the three of you, Dr. LaRosa, Todd, and certainly you, Chrystal, to bring stories like this to the world that help us alleviate some of those desires to get physical and harm others and share more love and hugs, right? So Chrystal, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing your story. Most importantly, I just want to say, it was not with intention, and Chrystal shared with us earlier, she's been persistent, and I haven't been always at this available, right? Like I've connected and but I haven't been able to meet. And it's just a testament to who you are. And I just can't thank you enough for walking tall with us. And before you talk about how to connect with you, if you don't mind, like, what was it? What was that persistence? Like, what about walking tall, kept you coming to say, hey, Chris, are we going to meet? Hey, Chris, are we going to meet? Hey, Chris, I'm here. What about walking tall called you to do that?
Honestly, when I first discovered Walking Tall and I heard your guys' stories, I was just starting out with Rise of Chrystal Phoenix and everything. I was just developing who I was, and I believed in what you were talking about. Walking tall in the face of adversity, period. Standing up for what was right, getting those kids out of that stadium, things like that. Those stories just moved me really. And I've paid attention to what you guys have been doing on LinkedIn, on everything. And that's why I stayed persistent, because I believe in your mission, and it's very much in line with what I do. I mean, my slogan is coaching the Phoenix, together we rise. When we help others, we all rise together, whether one of us is in the spotlight or not. And the mission with Walking Tall just was that in line with what I was trying to build, what I'm building. And that's why I stayed persistent. That, and honestly, the Blackhawks thing kept me on your butt.
Yes. Go Hawks. Yes. Shout out to my man, Ron Carter with the Blackhawks. Yes, let's go. We got another cup to win. But Chrystal, before we sign off, your persistence paid off. And frankly, I am ashamed that I haven't been more available through all of our doings and our being busy in life, to meet. I'm so glad I finally was able to. So thank you for that. Thank you for walking tall with us. And please let people know how they can connect with you, where they could find out your information, how they could join your book, and whatever it is you want to talk about. The floor is yours for the next few minutes.
Honestly, the easiest way to be able to get any of my connection information is go to riseofcrystalphoenix.com, because it has my LinkedIn, my YouTube channel, my Facebook. It has all of it, including a page to find out more about the anthology project and to sign up or to donate, because I am not charging my writers like most anthologies do. I am asking for donations, because those donations are going to the Break the Silence of Domestic Violence Angel Christmas Fund. It's an organization that I volunteer with for their support line and their social media, and they do Christmas for families that have lost somebody to domestic abuse, the Angel Fund. And so I am raising funds for that under the anthology. But there's a link on my website for both of those. So that honestly is the best way to get a hold of them, to find me, is if you go to my website and that will take you to my LinkedIn, which, yes, I will own. I am strolling my LinkedIn constantly all the time. And then probably every week I do a live broadcast on my YouTube channel, but it also goes to my LinkedIn.
Yep. And then please, I've joined some of your live audio rooms as well, and they're a great time. I won't say they're always fun, right? Because there's some heavy topics being discussed, but walking out of that conversation, I've always felt better and more hopeful and resilient myself. So if you have an opportunity, please join Chrystal in some of her audio rooms as well. But guys, I can't tell you enough, like, we can go on and on as always with all of our guests. Chrystal, you've been just amazing and so impactful, and please already like, click, subscribe, whatever it is you got to do to keep following us as Chrystal has. Please do so. Your support means the world. We're going to keep putting out great content, and if you want to reach out to us individually, check us out on walkingtallmovement.com. And all of the things, as we say, YouTube and whatever else is out there in the world. But most importantly, Chrystal, before we sign off, we always like for our guest of honor to lead us in those two important words. So if you would do us that, ma'am, it would be our honor. Let's tell those listeners and viewers to, you know what, before we sign
All right,
off.
guys. You know what we got to do? We got to walk tall.
Walk tall, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. Walk tall. We'll talk soon. Bye now.
Walk tall,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you.